Today, we are going to be talking about a player who was talented beyond all comprehension, came into his rookie year laying it down on everyone, being one of the best almost immediately, but tragically not able to continue showing the world how talented he is as a player and person. As it goes with a lot of the greats, we always go back to the Apex days, this time to a team called BK Stars, Burger King Stars, whichever you want to call it. This team was essentially fast food anyways. It's not bad, it's not good, it just exists. There's a couple of well-known names here for whatever that's worth, Bernard and Twilight. Then we have Alarm on main tank. And if you know who this guy is, you'd initially be confused. Alarm is not known for tank play, but he was on the Rectangle Man during early Apex. His performances were hard to gauge since we don't have direct POVs of Alarm during this time. The team overall was not horrifically bad, third place in Apex Season 1, progressively getting worse until Burger King Stars disbanded in 2017. During the tail end of Alarm's career on Burger King Stars, however, when Apex Season 3 rolled around, Alarm must have had one of those quick play moments most people have had where you're playing tank, you look into a mirror, contemplate what you're doing with yourself, say fuck this, leave, and then switch to support. Sadly, he didn't have any true success throughout Apex, even after joining Lunatic High number 2, which he was playing support on. He also placed 3rd or 4th in various tournaments, but the only thing of note here was how right after Alarm switched from tank to support, his results were immediately better in totality, at least in comparison to BK Stars. But his legacy did not truly begin until Fusion University. Obviously, being Philly Fusion's contenders team, I can't believe it myself, who would have thought. Alarm primarily played Zen, which he was exceptional at. Alarm truly started coming into form when he became a support player, individually performing really well, and Fusion University was a wildly successful team all throughout contenders. In 2018, this group won contenders season 1, 2, and 3, then went on to win 2019 Contenders Season 1, and Alarm was by far the best player on this team alongside Who Are You. Alarm went from 0 to hero, winning nothing at all on tank, then switching to support, and around a year later, he was winning endlessly. This guy was one of those players where orgs were just waiting for him to turn 18. You could see the individual talent Alarm possessed by watching his POV in contenders. It was similar to a proper situation on O2 Blast, but for support. To my understanding, lots of teams wanted Alarm as a prospect. Granted, anytime someone performs this well in contenders, people would just throw money at you. But the onlookers could see his talent. Obviously, some were questioning if he was going to be overhyped, which is reasonable. Some players get hyped up like crazy, join the league, and then fail to impress. Mag in 2021 is a prime example of that. When it came to joining a team, I think in Alarm's mind, he just wanted to join the Fusion and no one else. He was on their academy team and had a fondness for Poco, which was one of Philly's off-tank players at the time. Prior to being a Fusion member, academy players wrote notes to the Tier 1 players, and this is what Alarm had to say to Poco. "I'm Alarm. I don't know if I will go to Fusion or not, but if I join Fusion, I want to be closer with you. When I went to the Fusion house for dinner, I was nervous, so I didn't even say hi, and I regret it now. I want to be like you. So nowadays, I'm going to the gym with Snillo. I want to go to the gym together with you, Snillo, and EQO. And you know what? We have the same birthday. I don't know when this letter will get to you, but I hope you make it to playoffs, and I will cheer you on. Goodbye, handsome guy." That is a very sweet note Alarm made, showing that he is a kind-hearted soul. In 2019, unfortunately for Alarm, Philly did not end up making playoffs, but their next season was looking much brighter, picking up Funny Astro, Fury, Hisu, Ivy, and of course Alarm, now that he is 18. The most eye-catching in the moment were definitely Fury and Alarm. 2-2-2 Rollock was here to stay for an entire season. People looked at Philly as a top team, and rolling out the gates, Philly was winning almost every match for the first few weeks, pushing the shit in of everybody. Those sorry bastards had no idea what was coming. Sato and Fury was a great tank line, Carpe had his MVP campaign begin in the first half of 2020, and Alarm was looking to be the best flex support in North America. Every match seemed to be a highlight reel for him, giving us a classic case of 3 DPS players on your team. He would always show up when they needed him to, landing the most clutch sleep darts to win team fights, mechanically unbelievable, and in contenders, he mostly played Zen, but in Overwatch League, when Alarm broke out the Baptiste, Ana, and even Brig, he was just better than everyone. As a rookie player, the value he was getting was generational talent levels of disgusting. It just wouldn't end. Regardless of the meta, team comp, he'd always be there to fit the bill time and time again. Statistically, Alarm was top 3 at every hero he played. People were questioning, like, is this kid actually better than Violet? And need I remind you, this was year 1 for Alarm. There were logical arguments to be made as well. Violet never played Ana. Alarm was a top 3 performance-wise at it. Violet's Brig wasn't amazing the few times he pulled it out, but Alarm, again, he was one of the best when he barely ever played it. Alarm's Baptiste and Zen were comparable to Violet as well. I know Violet had Twilight behind him to play Ana, and it's not like Violet was a slouch on her either from the glimpses that we've gotten to see, but the fact Alarm had the willingness to swap to everything and also be one of the best was a big positive in the Alarm camp. The Ana performances were not just a typical serviceable one. Think of Shu breaking out the Ana play. That's the level we're talking. And speaking of Shu, to put into perspective how good Alarm was, we all know Shu was good on Guangzhou, but it took him some time to actually get into form to what we know him as now. He joined the league in 2019 and didn't truly start making a name for himself until 2021 on Glads. When it comes to Alarm, people were watching this guy's POV arguing how he's better than Violet, who in the previous year during GOATS was incredible on Zen and won the league. That goes to show how impactful Alarm's play was on everyone. On top of this mechanical prowess and overall impact on the server, outside of the server, Alarm was always talked about highly by other members of his team, which is an important value not everyone can bring. As we all know, someone can be a good player in server, but outside they are a piece of shit. He added the intangibles anyone would want from a player while also arguably being the best support player in the world during his rookie year. He brought immense amounts of value, but sadly not enough to win anything. Fusion was fantastic all throughout 2020's regular season, going into playoffs at number 1 seed, while getting 2 more second place finishes throughout the year. One during Summer Showdown, which is the saddest loss Philly ever took. I was honored to have this as my first ever competitive Overwatch match to witness live. Paris Eternal versus Philly Fusion. Lots of people call it the best match of all time. I think that trophy goes to Junjiao's finals of 2021, but 2020 Summer Showdown is very close. Going into this tournament, this was the time Alarm was like, alright, we need to play Brig, put Funny Astro on the bench, then proceeded to be one of the best Brigs in North America when prior to Summer Showdown, he barely had any playtime, if any at all, on Brig. That is the level of talent he had when it came to playing Overwatch. Alarm could pick up any support hero and almost instantly be better than anyone around him. Philly Fusion was great at this stage's Genji meta, but sadly couldn't finish it out with a result of 4-3 in favor of Paris Eternal. Sparkle's Genji was just too much for anyone to handle apparently. Following this tournament, Philly acquired their other second place of the year in Countdown Cup, a 4-2 victory in favor of San Francisco Shock. People had high hopes going into playoffs, but sadly that infamous Roadhog patch came in where Philly did stop the playoff run of Washington Justice, then proceeded to get their asses handed to them in the Final Four. Once by Shanghai Dragons, and afterwards Seoul just kicked them while they were down. It was a very sad end to a great season, Philly Fusion's best overall season actually, shocking literally no one. Alarm won Rookie of the Year, Roll Star, and was an MVP candidate on the back of his performances. A top 3 MVP candidate as well, since Alarm eventually took that spotlight over Carpe, and the only logical MVP choices by the end of 2020 were Void, Fleta, and Alarm. Or to be fair, Violet and Choi Hyobin were very good picks as well. Regardless, if Alarm did end up winning, which there were plenty of cases for him to actually win MVP, he would have been the first person to get Roll Star, MVP, and Rookie of the Year, which we all know Proper ended up doing that a few years later, but it would have been wild to see a support player pull that off. Sometimes putting into perspective how impactful a support player is can be difficult to convey to normies. Saying Alarm was an absolute demon in the server isn't the classic victimization of like, oh, my role is harder than the others. If you understand the game, match to match, Alarm's value and impact was insurmountable, more so than almost anyone I've ever seen play support in Overwatch. This kid was essentially zero mistakes to player, and it was truly on par with Violet. No matter what loss Philly took, Alarm was never really to blame. In my eyes, he was the best player on this team, and that's no support bias either, because I don't have bias for any roles or heroes. That mentality doesn't even make sense to me. It's just the truth. He always played his role exceptionally, better than basically everyone around him. Philly Fusion was stacked in 2020 as well, being the best player on your team when Carpe has an MVP front running in the first half of the year. Sato and Fury were insane, Hisu was really good, Ivy was insane on DPS. It's really hard to noticeably shine there, especially as a support player. Alarm obviously had more room to grow, as anyone does, but year one was inhuman from him. As we went into the 2021 season, people were excited to see what Philly would do next, but this was the season Philly Fusion decided to reside in South Korea, playing in APAC. Lots of their players couldn't get visas, so an emergency roster needed to come into play, getting Hotba, Mono, Toby, and Rascal alongside Alarm and Carpe. They had a great start to 2021 though, a perfect stage, 4-0. Once again, Alarm was probably the best player on this team, showing much of what we expected from his previous season performances. No signs of fall off whatsoever. Carpe was the only person who was putting out the levels of impact similar to Alarm, with the occasional heroics coming out from the rest of this squad. Even though Philly went 4-0, it wouldn't be Philly Fusion without being negative. They didn't end up making that tournament playoff since their opponent was Shanghai Dragons, a classic 6-map series. Shanghai just ended up being better overall, ending their tournament run. This story ended up being the same throughout the entire season, Philly either not making it to play-ins entirely or getting knocked out during play-ins of all 4 tournaments. The squad tried their best. It's not to say they're bad, most of them are actually good individual pieces, just nowhere near as explosive as 2020. Also missing Funny Astro and Poco from visa issues. Losing Fury, Hisu, and Ivy was rough considering how those players contributed so much to Philly the previous year. Eventually, everyone did get to Korea in 2021, but it was just too late and they bombed out super early in playoffs. People who weren't Fusion fans just thought to themselves like, Alarm, just get the hell off this team, man. The franchise is cursed, just please leave. Go to Shock or something, like maybe we could get an Alarm Violet backline. Imagine that. Just go to a place where a winning is a possibility. He's a highly sought after prospect, and people would 100% throw the bag at Alarm to have him as a flex support player. Individually, he was still one of the best supports in the game. Granted, his 2021 year was not as good as his 2020 year, but considering the roster issues, it's understandable. Regardless of that, Alarm was hell-bent on staying with Philly, since going into 2022, every player was dropped, their mainstays in EQO, Poco, and Funny Astro, as well as their emergency Korean roster signings. Essentially doing a rebuild, Alarm stayed along, and same with Carpe, who obviously would never be dropped because he is the franchise player for Philly and has been since 2018. Everyone obviously looked highly onto what Philly Fusion was going to do next. They have a really dedicated fan base, and Alarm and Carpe is a fantastic core to build off of. But on November 8th, 2021, we got the news that shook the whole community. The passing of Alarm was unexpected, to say the least. To this day, it's never been put out publicly, and out of courtesy for Alarm, don't go around asking about his COD. No one truly knew what to make of this, considering how in the eyes of a viewer, you were able to see the sheer power he brought to the Fusion. He always somehow made a play that was incomprehensible. Statistically, he was one of the best flex support players on Earth, top 3 in the league at every pick, and any hero Alarm played was better than 99% of people almost instantly. But in the eyes of a player or staff member, no one ever said a single negative thing about Alarm, giving the intangibles of a fantastic teammate and person, while also providing better gameplay than basically everyone. As I said earlier, when people say a player is better than Violet at flex support on their rookie year, that's nothing to scoff at. It was not a knee-jerk reaction either. Alarm's footage and statistics align with those claims. Going into Overwatch 2, especially with what we know now, with the game going more into an individualistic direction, Alarm would have been one of, if not the best flex support player in the game. He's one of those players where you could tell that kid to just go play Lucio and he'd be putting Chio in a headlock after 2 months, beating him out. He undoubtedly would be right next to your Fielder, Shu, and Violet. Probably better. Alarm unfortunately didn't have the time to flourish more, and finding a support player who can pull off the prowess he did is practically impossible. Zero weaknesses, mechanical mastermind, and by far the most gifted support player Overwatch has ever seen. Being that unbelievable so quickly at a role so hotly contested is still mind-boggling. This speed is what makes Alarm such an amazing prospect. It didn't take any time for people to notice. Week 1, people saw how insane this kid was. If you gave him more time, he probably would have surpassed Violet with mechanical play if he hadn't already, which is obviously a debatable topic. Some could say, you're just saying that because he passed away. Nope. Alarm was just that talented. Not just anyone can switch roles completely and immediately be one of the best at everything they pick up. Not just anyone can be a rookie and your first few matches, people are already calling you the best support in the game. People like Alarm or Proper are generational talents that some may get sick of hearing about, especially with Proper. Viewers always got tired of hearing about him in 2022, but when you perform as well as these two did in their respective roles, it's a spectacle amongst the community, how impactful they are and what they do to the people around them. They have a lot of pressure as rookie players, and they start outperforming veterans and others of the like, and for some reason, viewers don't want to accept that. I'm not entirely sure why. But seeing these disgusting generational players come in is always a treat in my eyes. Going into the 2022 Overwatch League, they ended up changing the simple Rookie of the Year award to Alarm Rookie of the Year award to show appreciation to how much impact he had as a new player. Putting it simply would be just imagine Proper's rookie year in 2022, but just as a support player. That encapsulates Alarm perfectly. Again, don't go around asking about Alarm's COD out of respect for him. Private matters can stay private matters. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Alarm. Do you think he could have surpassed Violet individually? Make sure to leave that in the comments below. And of course, rest in peace to Alarm. We lost a great human being and one of the best Overwatch prospects in history.
예, 그게 2020년 신인상을 수상하시게 되었습니다. 알람 선수가.
진짜요?
예. 축하드립니다.
아, 야. 방금 울음이 나올 만큼 정말 너무 기뻐가지고 일단 신인상이랑 올스타에 뽑혀가지고 정말 팬분들하고 그리고 저를 뽑아주신 분들에게 정말 감사하게 생각드리고 또 부모님한테도 굉장히 고맙게 생각합니다. 부모님 사랑하고 그리고 팬분들도 정말 사랑합니다. 지금 계속 더 열심히 할 테니까 쭉 응원해주세요. 감사합니다. 사랑해요.